Helmut Newton was born in 1920 in Berlin. He was raised there. He did his first pictures there. He was trained with Eva during an apprenticeship at her studio in Schlitterstraße, close to Kurfürstendamm. Then he had to leave the city in 1938, fleeing the Nazis. 65 years later, he was so visionary to build up his own foundation. It was actually a unique piece in the whole world. There was no master for that. Of course, there's the Henri Cartier-Bresson Foundation in Paris, but actually not with such a big building, and which was given to him to host exhibitions there, his own exhibitions. Unfortunately, he died. He brought everything on track. He died and he didn't witness the opening. But he hired me as the curator, an architect to transfer the whole building. And then we started, together with June, his wife, his widow, and our president. And she became the driving force of the whole thing. The first ideas were just to show Helmut and his work, but as well other photographers, to make it like a context, you know, Helmut in the center of other photographers, which we did since 2004 onwards. Now we celebrate the 20th anniversary of our unique institution in Berlin. So we were inviting so many other photographers. We were doing group shows, solo shows, shows of Alice Springs, and so on and so on. And we bring exhibitions out to the world, including the one here to Venice. Of course, we know Helmut Newton as a fashion photographer, but he did as well something else. Portrait photography, nude photography, still lifes, landscape photography, but I mean, sticking to the fashion photography, he was commissioned by so many magazines and other clients. So directly for French Vogue, Italian Vogue, Russian Vogue, and all the others, Elle magazine and so. And so he was able to catch a certain moment and to fill it up with this kind of seduction, with this kind of elegance, but it's always a little bit provocation included. So there's a very, very funny quote by Anna Wintour. If we, the boss of Vogue, as we all know, if we wanted to get a stopper within the magazine, stopper is a picture, you know, let's say on page 300, and you flip to the pages and then you stop, you know, consciously or subconsciously. If we wanted to get this kind of stopper, we were hiring Helmut Newton. And there's of course some other photographers, but because he was able to do so. The idea in his photography was also about ambiguity. So there's always these two meanings, at least two meanings. There are different levels in there, so it's always a little bit enigmatic, it's astonishing, and this is as well an important word for him. You know, we have to astonish the people. We have to, not to bore the readers in the magazine or of a magazine, you know, this is very important. Of course, there's elegance, there's seduction, and all the other aspects you find also here in the exhibition in Venice, at Le Stanze della Fotografia. Helmut Newton lived in southern France, of course in Berlin, in Los Angeles, and nearly everywhere in the world. So he visited London, living there, New York, and so on and so on. But especially the sea was his element, the water. So he was close to the sea. Already in Berlin, he was swimming nearly every day. So he came also from southern France through Milan to Venice several times, starting in 1966. And behind me, there's a famous picture, you know, shot in the lagoon for Queen magazine. Queen magazine was a very innovative and cool magazine by then. So it was, you know, typical for him that to bring such pictures into the magazine. But later on, he covered as well films shot here in the lagoon, and some kiefer, which is as well here in the exhibition presented in the beautiful print. Yeah, he came back again and again and again. So he fell in love with this, with the lagoon, with Venice, like many, many others, like myself. It's so great to bring his pictures of Venice to Venice, back to Venice, and not only here. I mean, he was working for so many Italian magazines, working with so many Italian clients like Blue Marine and Gianni Versace and so on. But it was not only Venice, but it was also Venice, and probably especially Venice he was so attracted by. So nudity in Newton's work is a key element. Actually, he started with nudity in the 70s. In the 60s, we don't see any nudity in the magazines shot by Newton. It started slowly in the 70s. But then in 1981, there was an incredible series, an incredible invention called Naked and Dressed. So there was a naked woman or a couple of women and the dressed version of the same shooting. And you know, this was a diptych published in magazines like Italian Vogue, French Vogue, and later in other magazines. A little bit also prepared through a shooting he did 1975 in Paris, in Rue Aubryon, because he did his Newton version. The big nudes, starting in 1980, was also published in French Vogue, but yeah, it was not commissioned by French Vogue. It's a real nude picture, of course. But it became very, very important because he decided to print it in life size. And this was his invention into the world of photography, you know, to use the life-size idea of nudes. So we see some samples, the first 5 nudes shot in 1980 in Paris, in life-size, and later on there was more of these nudes, you know, shot in Monaco, in Nice, in Cannes, and several other places in the early 90s. So yeah, it was a great intervention into the fashion photography, and later on he did this book, and this was published until today. And this is very, very unusual as well.